There's a well-known leadership maxim that says, the first responsibility of a leader is to define reality. It's memorable, compelling, and often quoted, but it's also deeply flawed. No leader, no matter how gifted, experienced, or insightful, can define reality on their own. Reality is too complex, too dynamic, too shaped by forces beyond any one person's vantage point. The responsibility of leadership is not to define reality, but to make sense of it together with their team. Reality is not a fixed object waiting to be named. It is a constantly shifting landscape shaped by cultural forces, navigational and organizational dynamics, emotional undercurrents, and the lived experiences of the people in the room. When leaders assume they can define it alone, they unintentionally create a culture where their perspective becomes the standard and everyone else's becomes secondary. This is where the wisdom gap widens. The wisdom gap is the space between a leader's ideals and the collective wisdom of the team. That space can be a place of creativity and growth when approached with humility. But when filled with hubris, it becomes a breeding ground for distortion. Leaders begin to trust their instincts more than the team's discernment. They become sealed off, convinced that their clarity is superior to the group's insight. And once that happens, learning stops. Teams feel this long before leaders do. They notice when their perspectives are dismissed. They notice when decisions are made in isolation. They notice when their expertise is overshadowed by a leader's intuition. And over time, they stop offering their wisdom. They stop challenging assumptions. They stop engaging deeply. The team becomes quieter, not because they agree, but because they no longer believe their voice matters. This is why humility is essential. Humility acknowledges that wisdom is communal. It recognizes that no single person sees the whole picture. It invites others into the process of making sense of the moment. Humility doesn't diminish a leader's authority. It strengthens it by grounding it in shared discernment. Leaders who embrace humility create cultures where wisdom circulates freely. They ask questions instead of making pronouncements or opinions. They seek understanding instead of asserting certainty. They allow the team to shape the direction rather than carrying it alone. And in doing so, they cultivate a leadership environment where reality is not defined from above, but discerned together. Leadership is not about declaring what is true. It is about creating the conditions where truth can be discovered in community. That is the work of wisdom, and that is the work of leadership.